We forgot about the D&D apology tour with Kyle Brinks, because that was also
true.
in
Oh,
there.
that's a really good point.
Good God,
missed
what
that.
a disaster that is.
It's funny. It's like
Let's drag our
it just
whipping
keeps
boy across
coming up.
YouTube.
It just keeps coming up. It's like, wow, just when you couldn't think of everything bad that happened.
I feel bad for him. It sounds like, I don't know WotC's exact corporate structure, but it sounds like he was like the manager who's one step above the creative team for D&D, who therefore was having to like know that his entire team was against this, having to be the one person who was in the meetings when the big executives were saying, let's do this thing. And Kyle must have been the voice for that team, being like, well, everyone on my team hates this idea. Or I guess maybe he didn't say it, right? And then they make him be the one who comes out kind of in front of a firing squad. Now, to be fair, the people, I want to give a lot of credit because the people who interviewed Kyle were polite and professional, but they didn't let him off the hook as much as some people were afraid that they would for certain like evasions WotC had made, and they made him answer questions, and he still managed to, in some cases, talk around certain points that he didn't want to say, that WotC didn't want him to say, but they didn't like stonewall the list of questions either, and they did let the creators put up their version of like what was filmed without like WotC taking control of the footage or something like that.
Well, I mean, I'm just to play some little devil's advocate here, Mark.
Oh, sure. Please do.
Let's just do an analysis of the people who actually got airtime with Kyle.
Okay.
Like Ginny D, Bob World Builder. What is that one other really small podcast that, at least on YouTube, they have a small podcast presence. I don't know what their download rate is on their actual Spotify or whatever, but that was another one that they did a tour with. Like, I've looked at some of their other content, and we all know Ginny D and Bob World Builder. And
was it Three Black Halflings?
Yeah.
One of the other ones.
Yeah. Like you know, this is nothing against Ginny D and Bob World Builder and Three Black Halflings. They did a phenomenal job.
They did awesome, and people before were just like, "Oh,
fantastic.
they're not gonna ask the right questions," but they did.
They did.
Did they?
Well, they did. Yes,
there was a certain kind. No. There was a certain kind of digging that could have been done.
Okay, they could have dug even harder.
If they were brought on in front of Steven.
Oh, we would have ripped them in pieces.
You would have completely destroyed them. And they knew that. And that's where, like, let's go for the people who we know we can tolerate them being hard with.
Yeah.
And you know, that might get some people mad at me in the RPG community, but you know, and I love Ginny D and Bob World Builder, to be clear, but it's very clear to me also that WotC, this is not Ginny D or Bob World Builder's account. I'm not taking them to task at all.
Mm-hmm.
WotC was very careful about who they handpicked to go on this apology tour with, and that is something that I think we have not taken into account in this apology tour. Like, if they had just done an open QA, it would have been an absolute disaster.
I mean, that would have been a disaster. That would have been more of a disaster than them going to Steven, because at the very least, much more of a disaster, because open is always the biggest disaster.
Yeah.
If it's just open to everyone, then that goes to the lowest common denominator immediately. Like, you would much rather go in front of someone who does know enough to ask all of the hard-hitting questions, but at least just that one person that you can talk to, then go in front of open.
I would have brought Ryan Dancy on as
exactly.
well. I mean, like we would have been ripping him to pieces.
Indestructo Boy nailed it. He said, "We saw what happened with it when it turned into the summit." Like, and those were another list of curated content creators and Twitch streamers that were at the summit, and they lost it.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Well, look. But I had a lot of comments. I had a lot of videos explaining how to recover from this, which, by the way, they're starting to do some of those. They actually are starting to go through that list, because I think we had some good ideas in there. Is that you can recover from it, and it's by brutal honesty and owning it. And that was the problem, is that they only did a half-hearted
and we did too. Yeah, and we won too.
It's like, you got to just come out and say, we screwed up.
We screwed up.
Yeah.
We're sorry. We're moving on.
Yeah, and like we really messed up, and we realize that now. We apologize. We were going to do everything in our power to make it right. I mean, it looks like the big thing is also it doesn't look like any of these people were trained in media, media training, which is a real thing. And there's a lot. It's like I work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and these people are very slick. And we even said this when we were talking to Linda. Linda at this time also met right when this was all happening. Remember, they met with Critical Role.
They did, yeah.
And they said, and I met Matt Mercer. Man, did they have their shit together. Like, they were so good at this, so polished, so charismatic, so good at making you feel important. And they would only answer the questions the way they wanted to answer them. And they were obviously very well trained in handling the media. And Kyle just wasn't, and it's just showed. And the problem is, like, why didn't they just get somebody? I guarantee they could have either gotten someone from their PR agency or someone in the industry, maybe in their company that had this training. But
if they picked a PR person, though, that's someone who doesn't know. They weren't in the room. And that would have come off, I think, as more
perhaps
very insincere, just reading off talking points. Whereas, yes, Kyle didn't have the training, and yes, he was obviously coached to evade certain questions that he evaded every time. But he also answered some of them.
No,
and
he did.
He clearly was in the room enough that he could give an account of things, and it felt like it was his account, and you take everything knowing it's from the perspective of the person who's saying it, but it wasn't just like a marketing person who was never there, who was just reading off of a list of pre-prepared notes, right?
Yeah. I mean, long story short is this is going to be studied a long time, I guarantee, at like business schools of like what not to do. That really is. It's like, and I hate to say it, it's like this was... they just did a lot of things wrong, and it's just fascinating because I've seen this before, but not at companies of this size. And it was just that's what's also was so shocking is that you just don't see it, and I just don't understand like what was going on, or did the C-suite just think so little of the people in the community that they thought they can just throw someone out there and just have them answer some questions and hope for the best? I mean, I really don't know what's going on.
Well, Indestructible wants to give credit where it's due that they didn't skip any reasonable questions at the summit while people really tried digging into them there.
Oh, right. Were you there, Indestructible? I couldn't remember.
Was.
Oh, you were there. I couldn't remember. I know Bob was there. Oh, even better. Oh, then, damn it. Could have had you on and talk all about that. Well, anyhow.
He was at the summit. But guess what, guys? The summit means that we are only at the beginning of April.